Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. It is a wonderful Friday, and today is the day that the Lord has made. Because in a few moments, I'll be sharing my thoughts and feelings on part 2 of the Ready to Love Miami reunion. And to that, I must say hallelujah, because we finally reached the end of the season. But over the course of the video, I'll be sharing my thoughts on what happened during tonight's reunion episode, followed by an overall rating, and I'll end the video by giving my thoughts on the season overall. But before I get into all that, Halloween is right around the corner, and I decided to come out of retirement to participate in a pumpkin painting contest. This is my pumpkin, and whether I win or lose the contest, I must say that I had a lot of fun. But with that news out of the way, let's jump into this review. We begin the episode where we left off last week. Charisse and Kadian are going back and forth, arguing about a bunch of nothing for the 50th time this season. They act like they're going to fight, but then they get broken up, but they sit in separate areas on the stage and begin running their mouths across the room. This negative back and forth triggers Kayla, and she gets emotional and asks the two of them to get over the whole situation. And I'm right there with Kayla. I never thought I'd see the day that Ready to Love would turn into Real Housewives of Atlanta, but here we are. Nephew Tommy then adds his 2 cents about the matter, and through the power of editing, all is good in the neighborhood. We then focus on Justice and his time on the show. We see Justice trying to explain why he moved the way that he did on the show and why he's no longer with Looney. And the more Justice tried to defend himself, the more confused I got. As I said in the previous review, I'm just a small town guy with a public school education, and sometimes I need things broken down for me. In this instance, I really don't know why Justice and Looney didn't work out, and Looney left the stage before Justice could eventually explain himself. Justice went to check on Looney, but he returned to the stage alone, and he ultimately admitted that he needed to work on some issues in order to get back into the dating scene. But after the commercial break, Justice pulls Looney aside, and they seemingly make up, which was a good move for Justice. Looney has always been my top pick of women on the show, and I think that she would make a great girlfriend to any single guy. We then move on to Samson, and we get to hear from some of the women that received gifts from him during the season. All of the women essentially confirmed that Samson was a gentleman, but Samson and Charisse have a long drawn out back and forth about how Samson didn't let the other women know that she was his top connection. And thankfully Mike was nearby, and he saved the day by sharing that Charisse and Samson have different standards for how they move through the process, and neither were really willing to bend. Now from the outside looking in, I completely understand how Samson was moving through the process. To someone like Samson, actions speak louder than words, but for Charisse, she needed the words of affirmation, as well as for Samson to mark his territory with her to the other women. Samson wasn't willing to do any of that, and here we are. We then learn that Samson now has a girlfriend, and Charisse is still single. And in the back of my mind, I'm wondering if Charisse had played her cards right, she might have been Samson's girlfriend by the reunion episode. We then move on to Kadian and Swayze. We learn that they contacted one another after the show, and they rekindled their connection. The only thing we're talking about during this scene was Swayze and his history of interracial dating. I can say that as a black man, I know the stigma that comes with being open to dating with other races. And for some reason, that same stigma is somewhat absent when black women decide to date outside the race. I feel that people should have the right to date who they want without judgment. But that's just me. We then go to Randall and his connections with Trinika, Jay, and Kayla. During this segment, there's some back and forth between Kayla and Jay regarding the drama at the retreat. Then Trinika chimes in, and she shares that Randall doesn't claim Jay outside of the show. This is when we revisit the news that Randall and Jay have been dating other people. And Randall has admitted to dating Kayla since the show ended. I've made my thoughts known about this three-way for quite some time. And when it's all said and done, I think that Randall needs to take accountability for how he handled the situation with these women. We then move on to Mike and Brandi, who are still together, booed up, and possibly looking to get married in the future. Mike reveals that he was never torn between Brandi and Kayla, which makes me wonder, why did he and Randall keep Kayla around? Well, that's neither here nor there. The only other thing worth mentioning about the reunion is that April and Calvin, 2 of the cast members who had the least amount to say during the past 2 episodes, have exchanged numbers, and we shall see how that goes. But overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this reunion a solid 2. It was more the same negative energy, and this reunion could have been condensed into one episode and had the same impact. But here are my final thoughts on the season of Ready to Love. In a way, the more I watch Ready to Love, the more I find myself losing brain cells, as well as hope in humanity. This is one of the few reality-based dating shows that I can accurately predict its outcome solely based on what the cast members look like, which is pretty sad if you ask me. But one of the biggest disappointments that I have with Ready to Love is the discussion that has been generated amongst the fans of the show. So here we have a show which for the past 4 seasons we have seen several sisters and brothers shown in a negative light as they live up to the negative stereotypes that are promoted throughout society. And this doesn't seem to bother too many fans of the show. However, the moment a man on the show elevates his tone of voice when talking to a combative woman on the show, now it's an issue of protecting black women, and if you as a viewer or content creator don't fully jump on the bandwagon, then you get labeled something unpleasant. Maybe it's just me, but I'm tired of this foolishness that I see on the show. So much so that I'm willing to dedicate an unpopular opinion video about my thoughts on the future of Ready to Love. And I'ma just keep it real with all of you. Those of you who sub to my channel know that I'm a man of the people. And if the people want me to continue reviewing this show for the future seasons, then I will. But if Ready to Love doesn't change for the better, then I can fully guarantee you that with every review that I have for the show going forward, it'll be epic and very memorable and not in a good way. But with that being said, this marks the end of my review. I want to thank each and every one of you who joined me along for this Ready to Love Miami journey, even though it was quite brutal at times. I want to thank those who tuned into my weekly reviews, and next week, I'll be posting my announcements for my future weekly review lineup. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.